Okay, welcome back to the Rock and Roll channel. And as promised, and I talked about him on Sunday that I was going to work on getting this guy. He's busy, Billy P. Just a quick little backstory with me and him. We met at Twin Peaks, I think the day of the Georgia game.
Yeah, unfortunately, the day of
Unfortunately, well, it was cool we met that game itself, but
we've won one game since we met. Maybe we're the problem.
yeah, and we gave Mike a new deal. But but anyway, Billy's one of the most knowledgeable Noel fans you'll meet anywhere. We have some of the best conversations watching football, talking it. So I've been asking him for a while to please jump on. So I'm really glad we got him. And you might notice tonight him and I have two different points of view on things, and that's fine. I was saying that it's one of the things I really like about Billy. Normally, one of his main specialties is how he breaks down game film, loves the X's and O's talk, and we'll talk a little of that tonight. But we're going to talk about the stuff that everyone wants to talk about, I think, and that's the coaching news that came down the other day. We haven't talked about it, you and I,
No, we haven't.
at all. And Alfred comments just now. He spoke to Ward Chan and just basically something what he had to do was assure everybody that he's all in on Coach Norvell and that Mike has 100%, you know, road to making the hires, which I don't buy. I think Alfred's going to really have to micromanage that and going to.
Yes, I saw some blogs stating that Alfred wanted it done a couple weeks ago, and Norvell, I don't think was ready to do it this week, and it was kind of, I mean, that there's not a lot of people talking about that story. That it was kind of like, dude, this is it. I'm not waiting till the end of the season. I think Norvell really wanted to.
Yeah, I had heard around Duke or even before that they wanted it done.
Yeah,
At least something. Norvell did hold off, risked insubordination, from what I heard too.
right. So that was, I mean, this is all alleged. The report
Right.
is like pretty loose, but they were going to pin him on that if he didn't do this. So they kind of strong armed him into making the moves this week. Which,
Yeah.
if that's the case, I mean, that's really bad. But if they're actually that fractured behind the scenes, that's not what I would want to hear. Anytime there's a coaching fire, I feel like there's a string of things that lead up to it. And one of them, which is something you and I also disagree on, is when an offensive play calling coach gives up offensive play calling duties. The next year, they're typically fired. Happened to Jimbo. There's a long list of people that happens to. And the reason for that is, I mean, a guy like Norvell, the reason he appeared to be special, and I still think he is. He had an 8-year track record as a head coach of really effective offenses and situationally understanding where to put players in key positions that made him and his teams who they are. And when you take that away from him, he's not a Bobby Bowden. He's not a wandering the sideline CEO type of guy. What made him special was calling plays. When you strip that of him, you just got a guy. He's not a recruiter. He's not he's kind of like turn the defensive side of the ball over to somebody on defense and let me run the offense. And if he's not doing that, I don't know if you have anything other than just a guy. If he can become an elite recruiter, great. Let him be the CEO. I don't know. I don't know if he's actually going to give up play calling. I think he's saying all the things that he wants to say. You got to attract talent. But if he does, I don't know if that's the right move. Um, he
You're
does.
the first person to say that. And that's cool. I love it. You're right. He did say at the press conference yesterday, everything's on the table, which he has to say.
Yeah, no, they've been PRing him to spin this, for weeks. But like, let's say they do get an offensive coordinator in, completely new system. Norvell doesn't have enough time to be able to work that system, a brand new system, into his team, into his players who, where Mike has been super successful is like a Jordan Travis, where you've got 3 years in a system and you're making decisions quick. Mike doesn't have time to waste on implementing a new system next year. He could be gone at the end of next year or early into 2026.
Right.
So, I think his only chance to make it is if this year was a complete lack of talent, not necessarily scheme, and they're able to turn that table. And whether he lets somebody at least publicly call plays, but he's really doing it or not. I think that's his only way out. His only way to stay.
Right, but now it's different. Like I can see him going after an OC who could bring a quarterback with him too.
So that's when like we talk about who we probably want to see brought in. To me, my wish list, because all the name, who knows what the real names are? Nobody knows. But if I were like drawing in my mind the ideal candidate, it's a recruiter who's bringing some Gucci bags with him in terms of like you can get somebody who's going to bring a quarterback and a receiver and a couple recruits, man. So I start thinking like, who would be that ideal candidate? James Cooley, the wide receiver coach at Georgia, FSU alma mater, was, I believe, the tight ends coach under Jimbo. He helped speak with us. Amazing recruiter.
Our best recruiter.
And he's listed on 24/7 Sports as like a top 3 recruiter currently, like in terms of all-time talent brought in.
Yeah.
He's at Georgia making $650,000. Throw 900 at him and call him the offensive coordinator. But really, just bring some talent. If he can bring some guys who are frustrated at Georgia, along with CJ Wiley, committed to Georgia, you get him back. Like if I could get one thing for Christmas, it would be him as the offensive coordinator or receivers coach. But you give him that title and it's a bump, and he could bring a lot of talent with him.
Remember, you got to sell this to the boosters. If you're selling Mike's offense for next year, that might not go well. And you're also trying to sell them on a guy who left FSU in a really poor manner. Yeah. I know time has been 11 years. I get it, but you'd be surprised. People don't forget there.
Yeah. Well, so in terms
of a week before signing day, 2 weeks before signing day under Jimbo.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad. Jimbo forgave him, I guess, because he was at A&M with him for a bit.
Yeah. And so I don't know the backstory with you're right. If that's fractured beyond repair, is what it is. And so if there was an ideal candidate, it would look like that. I don't know. It's probably not him. But man, if we could get somebody like that,
right?
Or they're making a change. They're getting the offensive coordinator title, and they're bringing both transfer talent and recruits. Sign them up.
I think it's time to give up the offense. How many head coaches Paul plays? Very few.
Yeah.
It's got to be 5-10 of the high level.
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe less.
Right.
I think it's fine. I think he will become a better recruiter if he doesn't have to worry about calling plays, running an offense.
And that is his knock. He's in the lab all week during the season. Right. And he's not probably out shaking hands and kissing babies like he should. So
right, 100%. And I don't think he was demanding on his staff when it came to it.
Yeah.
At least that's Bud Elliott has said that the Florida State coaches have been known on the trail as not the hardest workers. It's not an NIL issue. It's we get outworked.
Florida was terrible. Like we haven't every podcast and blog that I've seen, not one of them mentions the loss of Fuller in recruiting. Not one. It's a joke. And how recruited we ever landed was like, man, Fuller pulled that guy. Never.
No. It was not a staff of recruiters as a whole.
At all. And to me, that's really where the cultural change has to happen with these. If you want to be the head coach calling plays, you better have James Cooley on your sideline recruiting.
Thank you.
And they missed on both. Dugans he hasn't developed anybody. And he also didn't recruit anybody. The class we had this year was because Keon Coleman and Johnny did so well the last few years. They were thinking that it was a system. It wasn't Dugan's recruiting because the second they got wind of him going, they're all gone.
Yeah, but that was interesting. What Elliott said last night was CJ Wiley really wanted to stick with Florida State.
Was it?
And his dad was like, "We just can't."
Yeah, you can't get into this.
And then you flip to the only school that he was looking at besides us,
right? Which is Georgia.
Immediately.
Honestly, I don't know why anybody wouldn't. I used to think about that back in like the Miami Hurricanes heyday, like after 2002. I'm like, if you're a recruit in America, why would you not go to Miami? Like they're sending 5 first-round picks to the pros every year. That whole team got drafted, and then we thought that with Bama. It's like if you were a stud, why even entertain going anywhere other than playing for Nick Saban. But, and Georgia's that right now.
Georgia is that way.
Yeah.
And Georgia has it set where, like, this is your NIL. We're going to get you drafted. And that's it. And I heard Georgia's like the only school that's fining players now because of NIL. If you're late for a meeting, if you're late for this, they're fining players.
Yeah. Well, they have the track record to do stuff. Yeah. Saban had that for a while too. But I think when you win like that, especially, and also kids and parents are also going to realize the extra. Let's say you're going to get $900,000 from Georgia. You really want to go 1.1 and be in a Mike Norvell offense from 2024? No. It's $200,000. Go get developed, make good money. You're still going to make money. You're just not going to probably make the most at your position, but you're probably going to make the league and win a championship.
That's exactly. NFL contract's bigger than the NIL.
Yeah.
That's why Alabama under Saban, not now, but you get $26K. That's it. If you're the top 5-star recruit or a lower level recruit, and we're going to get you to the NFL. And you get to play for Nick Saban.
One of the things that's really cool that I like that's happening with NIL, everyone was worried about we need regulation. But the market is shifting and becoming responsible by itself.
Right.
Which is great. Like that's kind of what this country, I mean, it's kind of capitalism. So I think schools got burnt, like Ohio State paying Quinn Ewers $1 million and never stepped foot on the field or had a couple snaps. And everyone took note of that and like, man, maybe we shouldn't always be the highest bidder. Maybe we should take a long-term strategic approach to this. And if you're Georgia, you don't have to be the highest bidder. You can sell them on some other stuff and a trip to the league. And it's starting like I think you're going to hear less and less of like the Cam Wards, where he was just trying to hit the high water mark, go wherever. So we'll see. They do need to fix the transfer portal though.
That's hurting college football more than the NIL right now, I think.
Way more. The NIL really hasn't disrupted things.
No.
Other than it counteracted with the transfer portal, where kids can move about and they could become free agents every year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. It's if the portal was just one transfer, that's it. Make it count if you're going to do it. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It would not affect college ball. And it's only fair to them because coaches can leave.
Yeah.
You win. Why shouldn't players?
Right.
But if you can transfer every day of the week, which some guys seem to be doing, it seems like, then we got a problem.
Right. There's Dylan Gabriel. It's his third school. Yeah.
Started UCF with Mackenzie Milton.
Yeah.
Then he went to Oklahoma, now Oregon.
Yeah.
But DJ is on his third.
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting common. Yeah. So, all right. So we've talked offense a little bit. I like the Coley idea. I just don't think they would.
That's not that.
If you got to sell boosters on change, and to write the checks this year, if you sell somebody from 10 years ago, I don't know if they're going to go for that.
Anybody who can recruit though, that's
what we need, and who are dogs on the trail.
Right.
And
that has to be the approach.
And Mike has to hold his staff accountable, and I think he can do that more if he hands over the offense.
Right.
Somebody.
And I think he was probably hindered a little bit by the loyalty. When you think about it, he didn't have any turnover. And Alex Atkins 2 years ago had some opportunities, at least alleged opportunities.
Yes, no, that's true.
Up with him, so he was almost like and they were winning. So why go any other direction? And it bit him in the ass.
I mean, we thought Atkins was the top 10 recruiter 2 years ago.
Of all of them, he was probably doing the best recruiting job, at least this year.
Yeah. Oh, by far.
Yeah, by far.
Unless you count the one recruit David Johnson got, the running back.
Those guys are all sticking.
They are, and the running back is too.
Yeah, so
that could help David Johnson's day, maybe.
So that's kind of an indictment on Atkins as a recruiter too.
Yeah. They all speak highly of him. Like they all say he's the realest coach. Right. He's the coolest coach one-on-one. Got some people in the chat. We're gonna get them in. Let's see. Chris Russo. Oh, he was talking about. I think this was from a while ago, early on when he talked about Norvell and the play calling. Yeah, Chris is a good dude. Let's see. ML1219, what's up, buddy? No to Coley. The wide receiver is struggling. Yeah, but it's due for a year like that. Like I can't hold them. Heartline, okay. I think we talked about that.
And that, to me, that's probably not a real candidate. But if you were to picture an ideal candidate, it's a guy like that. He's developed. He's recruited. He recruits South Florida really well. You know, we're not going to get the Heartlines or the Coolies, but someone like that.
Yeah, but he's never run an offense in college. And he's making, I think, 1.2 at Ohio State. You're going to have to double that to get him. To get him to even think about coming.
Right.
I wouldn't come if I was him. He's co-OC there. I know it's Chip Kelly's offense.
The only way I guess you get a guy like Hartline is if you tell him you're the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And if you're making a move as a guy like Hartline to OC, I mean, this is the floor. You're going to do better next year than we did this year. Like it's pretty hard to be any worse. I mean, Brock was one in the first half against Notre Dame. If Hartline can get somebody to 3-11 without a pick, I mean, so there's room to come in and say, look, I've changed it. I've made an impact.
Right. No, and listen, what might make us attractive, and it's sad, is the expectations aren't there. Look what you're coming into.
Yeah, rock bottom.
Rock bottom.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to be like, you better get us 9-10 wins or we're – no. And they're going to have to make guarantees about Norvell's stability. I get that. The guy I'm really interested in is Brennan Marion from UNLV.
Sure.
The go-go offense, who played for Norvell at Tulsa. So they probably philosophically have some – it's worked there, that offense.
Well, I mean, how good of a recruiter is he?
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. The thing is, will his go-go offense work at a higher level of ball?
I don't know. I'm still –
We'll have to have you study it.
I'm still burned. Those go-go offenses,
yeah,
they're high school level complexity. Like
yes,
it can work at like an FAU, but man, if we're going to compete in the college football playoffs, that's not going to work.
No, that's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah,
and he's not coming without getting complete control of the offense. Right. He's doing well at UNLV.
And just so. Like my stance is, I really hope behind the scenes Mike Still is calling the offense, and I know that's I'm probably like 1%,
which is fine.
Only because
what did you want tonight, Bill?
Only because I don't think he's a good coach if he's not, and he has an 8-year track record of really good offenses. Like to me, when you start thinking about firing coaches or changing positions. You make that decision like Fuller last year, even though we had a great defense. If they were like, yeah, Fuller, we got a better choice at defensive coordinator. After last season, I'd be like, yeah, do it. No one's ever been happy with Fuller.
I agree. I think with an NFL defense, he's good.
That stacked defense, there were times we were scratching our head going, we give up another 3rd and 18 to Boston College, I'm going to jump out of the way.
Thank you.
So, to sit here after an 8-year sample size and then one bad year, like scrap everything he's done, I'm not necessarily willing to do that. When the talent on the field is really clear, it's not there, especially up front. You watch film on their offensive line, it's a joke. Right. It's bad. What was crazy too is I watched the film from the ACC championship game last year and the Georgia game. If you watch those games, it looks like our offense from this year. The offensive line was that bad. Yeah. Now, the difference was Jordan was so good. He got the ball. He knew where he was going with the ball before he snapped. He was so comfortable in this offense, and him and Mike were on the same page. And it just worked so well. I think a lot of the stuff that we don't even see is him checking to the run when you're supposed to check to the run.
Right.
Because he covered up whatever decisions were being made last year when Jordan was in the game, covered up a lot of deficiencies with talent on the O-line. Because that ACC title game and that Georgia game, when I watched it, it looked like the same type of plays being called. It was a carbon copy of this year's offense last year.
Right.
So, when I say all of that, because if you give Norvell a good play caller, I think he can be really effective. And he dismantled LSU last year. That LSU
offense went down the rest of the year.
What's that?
Every game after that, that was the peak of the season offensively. I think at a certain point in your career, I don't care how young you are, because he's been doing this how long now as a head coach?
This is his ninth year, eighth year,
Fifth at Florida State. He was at Memphis for
three
or four as a head coach.
Yeah.
It's almost a certain point to become. You got to transition out of that.
Right.
You have so much on your plate as a head coach in a game,
and he has lost his creativity.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
To give up play calling, I think, is a benefit, and your level of candidates will double in quality.
Yeah.
No decent OC wants to come here in this mess to not call plays.
So one offensive coordinator that I heard the name being thrown around that might come, Chris Winkie. I don't know how good of a recruiter he is, but he's more of a quarterback's coach than an offensive play caller. He might be willing to come and, unofficially not call plays kind of thing and let Norvell do his thing. I don't know.
Those always sound great on paper, but it is an extra risk always hiring a former player, because if they don't do a good job, it's much harder to get rid of them.
Dugans.
Look at Dugans. And Dugan's an old friend of mine, but it's no secret Mike, for the last couple of years, was trying to replace him.
Yeah.
He made it kind of clear in a way. He didn't, because he knew there would be some backlash.
Right. Going into the season, we had such a highly rated recruiting class on the receiver front.
Yeah.
Without the wheels falling off, he was set.
I would love Dan Mullen. I know he's not the recruiter. That's not his strength per se.
Mullen's going to get a head coaching job, especially when you look back. They just honored him at Mississippi State he was the first number one ranked team in the college football playoff committee. The first ever, and they honored him for that. So when you think about it, he had Mississippi State at number one.
Dak Prescott.
In hindsight, what he did at Florida, not terrible. And there's probably a lot of schools looking around that would love to have Mullen, not top tier schools, but Mississippi State type schools that would take him back. I just don't know, being where he's been, I don't know if he'd come as a coordinator.
I mean, for him, that's kind of fun, because in this day and age of college football, he hated the transfer portal stuff. He hated NIL. He didn't love recruiting. I understand you lose that a little with him. It's kind of like a Chip Kelly there. Chip Kelly gave up being a head coach to just say, let me call plays. Yeah. I could see Mullen being like that.
If we could pull that off, that'd
be great.
Outstanding. That's a championship caliber play call.
That exactly. Recruits come on campus, they're going to listen to him.
Right.
His track record, and he's good with the media. He's good at all that stuff.
I'll tell you. So this is how I could get on board mentally with Norvell giving a play call. You get that, mm-hmm. and then Mike can put all of his energy, because he does have a ton of passion and a ton of energy. If he can learn to pivot and put that towards recruiting, maybe that could be a career change that he needs.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's time, and I'm not saying because the offense was horrible this year. He did say that the other day. I give him credit for that. Yeah. But I think it's time.
And to your point, you've said this many times at the bar. He lost his creativity. When they were really struggling that 5-7 year, 2021.
Yeah.
They were doing everything they could to generate yards and points, and they did him and Dillingham. They did a decent job at it. It wasn't like an explosive offense to watch, but we were in the Clemson game. We were competing with teams. We were losing by a little or winning by a little, but we were there. And it was that team lacked talent.
Oh, we had no deep threat at wide receiver. We had no size at wide receiver.
Yeah,
we found some ways. Listen, the Louisville game, I won't forget from that year. I think we were down with 35-7 at half.
Yeah, and came back, almost won it, right?
Almost won that game. Defense did not give up. I think they went 3-and-out. They had a 3-and-out every drive.
Yeah.
And he found ways to get Jayshon Corbin.
Right.
Run. We haven't got back to the 21-22 run game.
No.
Trey Benson had to lead the country last year in missed tackles.
Yeah.
To get some running yards.
Yeah.
So that's why I say something about that offense isn't clicking anymore. And it's funny, Alice Atkins said this. Jordan Travis didn't have full autonomy to check at the line until about the 6th or 7th game of his junior year.
Makes sense.
That's when the offense started to really take off.
Clicking. Yeah. And I think Norvell needs that type of play. I think all coaches do. I mean, with what defenses throw at you, you got to have somebody with enough wits in them to check in and out of stuff, or you're doomed. I mean, that's the hard part about putting a freshman in.
Yeah, I agree. But what's got me about Norvell this year is, let's say you got a running back whose really best move is going out to the sideline running, but you love to run inside. You gotta work with your talent.
Right.
This was the first, like 2021, he did.
Yeah.
Out of frustration this year, he called plays for Brock this year like he did for DJ.
Yeah, and the offensive line talent. Our offensive line can't run counters. There are so many plays that I've watched on film where we pull, and both guys block the same guy, and it's the wrong guy. It's the most ridiculous thing to watch. They come around the corner like sloths and try to wall off somebody they're not supposed to be walling off. And 2 or 3 free tackles just fly up and blow it up. What are we doing?
Yeah.
That's what I struggle with Atkins. You know, he had a track record. I mean, he was highly touted as a good offensive line coach. I don't know if he just let his hand off the wheel or what, but they've shown no progression all year. Like, there's stuff that is so clear on film that shows up every single week. And if you're a half decent coach, just work on those things in practice. And they weren't doing it at all.
I mean, even this year, I don't know if you watched the game the other night, the timeout again.
What, at the end of the half?
Yeah.
I wanted to throw up. I
don't get it. That's not – we used to always say Mike does a good job game managing.
Yeah.
Where we had issues with Jimbo in the past with that.
Right.
He would burn time. Mike has gotten away from – I think you need a new staff now. Like you say, you run with Atkins. I really think just when you're together so long, you almost get too comfortable together.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, you're not going to see a Bobby Bowden and Mickey Andrews again. I mean, they were different sides.
But that type of coordinator where you know Mickey's not leaving. Like,
yeah,
that type of duo.
And he had offers, trust me.
Yeah, he would have been in a press conference. He would have been pretty on behind the podium as like the head guy.
If Bill Belichick can do it, anyone can.
Yeah.
If you win, nobody cares what you have to say.
Yeah.
Listen, Atkins was one of the brightest stars in football. I think these guys, a lot of them are going to go elsewhere and do well.
Yeah,
if we had hired Mike tomorrow, I think he would have found a job somewhere. And
I think Buller's
think
Buller's not going to do well anywhere. He's terrible.
No, I'm not a Fuller. I never was. I didn't like his bend. I don't like bend, don't break. When you have the talent like we have.
So how many times have you seen one of our corners get beat one-on-one down the sideline deep this year? It's rare. Now there's a lot of blown coverages. That's
right.
coaching. And if our corners, which I do think they are, our entire secondary is pretty talented in coverage, press guys. Press the whole, stack the box. There's no reason we should have lost to Georgia Tech. Not one corner got burnt deep in man coverage against Tech.
We haven't got burnt until the last 2-3 games.
With freshmen.
Yeah. But our secondary has been fun. But I can't get all year. His defense is too complicated. That shouldn't be the case.
No, it doesn't even appear to be it appears to be soft. They don't blitz when they should blitz. They never want to be the ones applying pressure.
Or
always
contact.
What's that?
Initiating contact. The Kevin Knowles play the other night. That was the final straw. I don't know if you saw that play when he blitzed, had a perfect shot at the quarterback.
It could have been a strip sack, and it was the softest blindsided tackle I've ever seen.
And that's been the story of this team this year. I think
that's a
turnover since Cal, right?
What's that?
We haven't had a turnover since the Cal game.
Yeah, we only have like 3 on the.
Or maybe Clemson. I think we got one.
I think it was called back though from a penalty.
That's right. That's right.
And so blitzing Kenny Knowles, like we've done that before. He's never done well with that. I don't blitz of all the defensive backs. If you're going to call that play, don't blitz him. He's not the guy that I want blindsiding.
Right. I'm not talking about it from the player standpoint. I'm talking about from the lack of physicality.
Yeah, but some players are inherently not going to be physical.
That's true.
And Knowles is one of those guys. Like,
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like, not everyone's an Edwin Joseph that will.
across the board, those types of decisions from Fuller, it's just a nauseating defense to watch. I hate it.
No, last year we weren't great either early in the game, and then the veterans would just take over.
Right. That once Fisk got healthy, it was.
Yeah. They would figure it out and say, we got this. It was kind of like 2001 Miami, where they even said, we ran the show.
Right.
That was last year's team.
Yeah. That's why they wanted Coker. Just get out of the way. Let us.
Yeah. And that's why they wanted Coker, because they didn't want to have some new coach come in telling them what to do.
Right. So one real indictment of Fuller, Fisk and Jared Verse in the NFL now. And they're on the same side of the ball almost every play. And they're really hard to block. You know how many times they were on the same side of the ball last year? I can count on one hand. They were constantly Fisk on one side as a tackle and Verse on the other, when they were even on the field at the same time. The NFL coaches can see that. It's a no-brainer. Those two would have been nearly impossible to stop.
Right.
In that setup. And we barely ever ran that setup.
That's a good point. But also, LA Rams are also a much more aggressive defense.
Right. Well,
they let Verse and them get after it now.
They look so good, the two of them.
Oh, I know. I think it was finally the Louisville game. Because remember, they were working on those stunts they were saving for the end of the year?
Yeah. Well, and again, I think they were waiting for Fisk to get fully healthy. Whatever it was, because Norvell, God forbid, disclosed any type of injury.
That's something too, man. We can get into that if you want. I think, obviously, his credit with the fan base is hurt. At some point, you have to be a little more truthful with us.
Yeah. Well,
betting stuff changes. They have to do it, but
depth chart is a joke. He released a depth chart one game this year where I think it was Cryer. Somebody was hurt. Everybody knew he was hurt, and he had him in there. So it's just like, print whatever, send it out.
And he said that. He said that publicly. Someone asked him about it. He goes, it's just paper.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
The one thing that I really hate, if there's one bone I can pick with Norvell, his press conferences have always been like nails on a chalkboard. He said this opportunity. He said it again after the Notre Dame game. He said the word opportunity 20 times. What opportunity? We're 1-9. We're getting clapped. There are no opportunities. Like have an authentic thought. He's very robotic and he talks really fast and he gets over his skis and it's just gibberish and he's not really giving you anything.
You know, it's funny. If you go to one of his booster tour stops, he's totally the opposite.
And the War Chant guys say that too.
He's preachy and sermony, which now that you're losing, people don't want to hear that. Totally different than the press conferences.
Right.
I know it's different environments, but totally different.
Someone needs to coach him on how, because it's just, I don't even want to watch them anymore.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
His mind is always moving so fast. I mean, I thought Jimbo ones were tough to watch.
But at least Jimbo was like the opposite.
But he would give some things away.
Jimbo would give, and he'd also, nothing was good enough, which that's the kind of press conference I want. If they had a good practice, Jimbo was like, we suck today.
Yeah.
At least he gave you an authentic thought.
Yeah.
Mike is like, everything's great. I believe in everything. And the opportunity's in front of us. Well, not this year. There's no opportunity in front of us. So stop.
Yeah, his press conferences, like to the media, like when he's in the podium, he's okay. It's the after practice ones. Yeah. Got some good work in today. Got work. You asked him about a player. I can't talk about that. I won't talk. We haven't known all year about Sean Murphy until he just walked out on the field the other day. At least Jimbo every Thursday would give you the final injury list.
Right.
He won't do that.
He doesn't give you anything.
No. And
honestly, it's hard to tell if we do have a good practice or bad practice. It's the same robotic press conference no matter what.
And I know the media is there the whole time, but they can't say. I mean, they'll say a little bit, but they can't really say. They can't talk depth chart and they can't talk injuries.
Yeah.
Or they
do a lot of stuff. They bite their tongue. I watch War Chant all the time. They bite their tongue so much on that show.
Yeah.
They do a good job dancing around where you can kind of read between the lines. But yeah, he dangles the accessibility on. You better keep your mouth shut. which
Yeah, I would almost rather him cancel the accessibility,
yeah.
and
Why,
that way we can learn a little more.
yeah, why have access if you can't talk about it?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
They'll all say, "Oh, we know this, but we can't say this." It's old. I'm tired of it. Maybe those little things start to bother you when you're 1-9, and you wonder. People keep saying he's going to have to change his ways about this, change his ways about that. I don't know if he's built to do that in certain ways. Aside from giving up play calling, which he might be forced to do.
Yeah, again, the only way I feel like I'd get on board with that is if he can somehow become a Mario Crystal Ball type recruiter. He's got the energy and focus. He's got to put it towards something. If he can hit the trail while a Dan Mullen type offensive coordinator can come in and actually compete at a championship level with their level of complexity and consistency, that would be great. I just don't know if that's him.
This is the time for it. If he wants to be here another 4 or 5 years, he has to do that.
Yeah. What about the defensive side of the ball?
Okay, let's talk defense. All right. I want attacking.
You want, yeah.
I want pressure. I want blitzing. I want chaos.
You know,
I'm so tired of Fuller's scheme.
One thing we've almost never run is a 3-4. I can't remember Georgia, Alabama. Those Nick Saban defenses are all 3-4. And you know they've got there's so much talent linebacker and defensive ends / hybrid linebackers.
Right.
Your blitz packages, you can really confuse the heck out of a college team that way.
But you have to have the stud of all studs at D tackle because you're a guaranteed double team every play.
Yeah, which I mean we have had that before. Like we're capable of getting those guys.
Yeah, that's true.
You put Fisk and Darrell Jackson in a 3-4. I mean, Darrell Jackson probably is a 3-4 type nose tackle.
No, and Farmer hasn't had a bad year.
No.
Early on, yes, but Farmer and Jackson's actually played well since the bye week.
Yes, well, statistically.
That's all I'm going by.
You know who just got absolutely crushed? I rewatched the Notre Dame game. Colorado State transfer, Grady
Kelly?
Complete liability. I mean, so there's one thing getting blown out of your gap, but when you're getting blown off the ball and into other players, you might as well not be on. We should have played with 10 guys at times. He was getting absolutely destroyed on some of those run plays where I don't even know if I necessarily blame the second levels because he was getting crushed so bad. Now, granted, some of them were double teams, but man, fall down. Don't just get blown 7 yards deep. There was one play where it literally looked like he turned and he was sprinting because he was just getting destroyed.
And you've just given the prime example of what we did in the transfer portal last year versus the previous years. I think it's good if he gets the offense also because Mike is really good at evaluations and judging talent.
This year, I mean,
this year, I hope it's an anomaly. Like, I know I've been negative on him. I know I want him gone after this year. But if he can turn it around and be the guy, I think that's a good thing.
Let's talk about one of the reasons why I really want Mike to stay. Talk about the scenario where he doesn't. Look what we went through. It's not a guarantee we get a guy who's good. So you're already talking about mailing it in potentially for the next 2 or 3 years. Like starting over at head coach is not anything people should be hoping for. It is. Florida's been doing it since Meyer.
Yeah.
You know, we are right now. We're teetering on being in that cycle, and there's no getting a guaranteed sure thing at head coach just doesn't happen. So when you have a guy who has shown success winning at a high level, I think you need to commit to keeping that in place, and especially in today's landscape, stability means so much. There are going to be so many opportunities. If we're a stable program, there's so many opportunities with the transfer portal for us to turn it around. You know, I don't mind cleaning the house with all the assistant coaches. I really hope Mike sticks it out. If not, we're in for a potential decade this could really snowball because we miss again and you've lost 10 years.
Yeah. No, and if we can do it and keep Mike and save $45 million in the process,
yeah,
where we spend maybe 10, 20 to get rid of coaches and bring in new ones,
yeah.
you could do a lot with that $45 million in the NIL and you name it. We would improve cheaper.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like whether they'll say it or not, he's probably got at least 2 years left. But if we go 2-10 next year, and they look like this, you got to make it.
Yeah.
But man, it's not going to look pretty if that's the case. Because then who do you get?
Yeah, I mean, listen. If I told you 5 years ago we would pay $10 million for a coach, you would have laughed at me. Now, I think we were spending money on assumptions with Mike last year.
No, so
We were leaving the conference that we were going to get some things.
wait, and so say that again.
We have the money to pay Mike. We gave him the $10 million, but that was based on projections for a few years from now.
Yeah, so I don't. I mean, I don't have as much insight as you do in like the booster situation. And the only feedback any insight I've ever gotten about our financial situation is every now and then I'll give to the battle's end. And I remember 2 years ago they actually put something out that said we've got enough for now, which I was like completely taken aback by. Like, really? You don't want to take a little bit more money right now? Which gave me a lot of confidence because, all right, we're not really strong. I don't know why they would say that. Like, but I think our financial position is much stronger than people think.
Oh yeah.
So, we're shelling out $8.5 million to the assistant coaches. Is that that's booster money, correct? That pays out.
Booster, Battle's End, you name it.
We raised $20 million like overnight to get rid of Willie Taggart.
But 65 was unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
Get rid of Mike.
And let's
You're cutting your nose off to spite yourself there, as my friend Vince, who was in here earlier, said.
and
I know I wanted him gone, but not for that much.
No, and let's say we could afford it. It's still such a waste. Like you said, go out and spend $65 million on a roster.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to do that soon in the next year or so.
You're allowed to do that. You can spend $65 million on a roster now. And
Remember, 65 for Mike plus another 10 to 20 for assistants, like we're spending now. So you're looking at almost $100 million when you're in the stadium renovations, which you haven't paid off yet.
Right.
You're in the lawsuit with those billable hours.
That's why I feel like
it would have been a bad time to fire him financially.
Barring a 2-10 season or just us looking like our offense looking like an unfolded lawn chair next year, I think he probably gets through 2026, depending on how we look.
I agree. I think you basically committed to him now. Yeah. And that statement today said a lot.
Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's probably what's keeping our 11 commitments intact. Is there's some buy-in and stability at least for next year.
Listen, if he brings in a new coaching staff that gets us excited, we'll forgive him. And I think in this day, we talked about this. I swear we talked about this. College football is becoming like the NFL. You can go 2-10 1 year, 3-8, whatever, and the next year with the right transfer portal players, you can be right back in the thick of things.
And when you have a bad offensive line like we have, it's just so debilitating on both sides of the ball. Like, you think about how the team looked against Georgia Tech. It was a very competitive team. And because we can't block anybody, just the morale of those players is they just know it's coming. If we spent money on a new offensive line, there's a really good chance with the back end talent we have. I would say a really good offensive line and maybe 1 or 2 receivers. We could be a really solid team next year. Our secondary is awesome. Like, when you look across the board at even the recruiting rankings, like, our secondary, we have very highly respectable players that Georgia and Ohio State would cover.
Yeah.
They've just got to, if we could just hold the ball for more than a 3 and out.
Remember, we're still going to have a lot of guys leave. Now, we don't know. Maybe the new coaches come in and they can convince them to stay. We don't know. But there's going to be some guys we got to kind of push away that you might say, like, I like this player. Like, I think we have to start fresh and not just the coaches, but players.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. Like, so Lester hasn't seen the field at all. He played a little bit in Notre Dame.
He got toasted, yeah.
So he's probably the most highly ranked secondary we have, right?
From that class? Last year's class?
Yeah.
Him, Luke,
that's still higher.
Cam Davis were up there.
No, I mean on the defensive.
Oh, defensive? That would be returning? I mean, I assume Zari is going to go pro.
But if you look at the true freshmen in the secondary who have played, it's Lester has not played at all. I'm pretty sure he was the most highly ranked on 24/7.
He was.
So maybe he's got an attitude problem. Maybe he needs to go. I don't know. That's
it could be.
Yeah.
The rumor is Surtain's probably going to leave for Southern Miss. Just a rumor floating. DC.
Well, other coaches. I mean, what defensive coordinator is not going to come and want his own staff? Like that's almost a given.
Right.
So those guys.
Maybe one guy sometimes. That I agree.
They should almost make Odell. See, I still think he's done a really good job of developing talent. I was arguing with some people this weekend who disagreed with me.
That's how we became friends talking that day.
Yeah, I guess most people disagree with me, or just gravitate towards people who disagree with me. But Odell, to me, our defensive line across the board has put NFL talent out. But let's say a new defensive coordinator comes in. He's got his defensive line guy, his interior defensive line guy. Make Odell an administrative type player or a type coach where he's just dealing maybe with off the field issues. Like he is such a asset to the university. Like it would just be we got to somehow retain him.
Yeah, even if he doesn't coach, and I'm not speaking for him, and I go back with Odell a long time. Even if he's just in a basketball,
yeah.
I don't mean just boosters. I mean just like when it says Odell, and I don't care what people say, Odell, if he doesn't want to coach anymore, then I think it's up to him. I think it's on that because our defensive tackles have not been a liability this year, other than maybe one game or the first game. And I think we just got punched in the mouth that day and never responded.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a mental component to our defense that continuously breaks down every game. Right. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. It's brutal on this.
And if you watch your linebackers that first game, man, I know we're getting X and O's here. If they keep missing tackles behind you that you're setting up, eventually you're just going to save.
Yeah. And you know,
they've improved this year, linebackers. It's probably our most improved position since the first game.
Well, they've improved from a talent depth standpoint. Their on the field play has been terrible. We don't
say great, but improved.
Consistently fill a run fit to save our life. Shaheem Brown's been awful.
That's a safety though.
Well, but that's in college. The biggest difference in the run game between college and pro is run fits in the NFL. Safeties don't miss on run fits. They're there.
Yeah,
that's why you start almost every run goes for like 4 or 5 yards, and then there's a safety there.
Oh, I agree.
In college, safeties are out of place all the time, and Shaheem Brown, for as veteran and a leader as he's supposed to be, he is never in the right place, and he misses big plays. And so even when he does make the tackle, it's 3 or 4 yards downfield, and he wasn't in the right spot where it could have been a tackle for a while. Mm-hmm. But more often than not, he's just not there.
And it's funny, his job this year was to be the main guy to get us lined up properly.
Yeah, and he's terrible.
Which is not.
The Georgia Tech game, he had 11 tackles and he was like ACC Defensive Player of the Week because it was week 0. He played awful that game.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of his worst games this year. But when I watched a business decision the other day on a missed tackle, like that's when we watched that North Carolina game, I was done with this team. I was done with this coaching staff. I was done with everything. If you quit on me, it's hard enough for me not to quit on you.
Yeah.
And I get it. 1-9, 1-10. And now I'm starting to hear 247 was saying if you watch some practices the last couple of weeks, it said it's almost been like just trust me, if this team got told today, hey, you can cancel the last 2 games and go about your life, I think they would. They would have done it 2 weeks ago if they could. And some of the coaches, I think, were coaching out of just not even self-preservation, just
get me out of this.
get me out of this. I'm sure they have a calendar countdown to get out of this year. I'm sure a lot have been told you're not coming back.
Right. And that's why all those wide receivers decommitted in like a 2-week span. I feel like Dugan's already knew, and he either just stopped calling them or they found out. Like they went like that. So
Yep.
Dugan's is probably known, and everybody saw that one coming.
Mm-hmm. I think so. And you couldn't fire one coordinator, not the other.
Right.
On a team, I mean, man, that Notre Dame game, if we lose 24-10, let's say, whatever, something like that, I don't think 3 coaches are fired on Sunday. I think Mike uses that out.
Yeah, fortunately.
Maybe 1 at the most. So I think that caught people off guard. Doing that all in one shot.
The worst beatdown we've ever had.
Yeah, and statistically, one of the worst in college football ever.
And it was close in the first half, despite Brock being like 1 of 11.
They were talking about our dropbacks. Like, listen, at some point, just tell Luke, throw the ball. Throw it. I know he's a freshman. We've kind of hurt him this year, that's for sure. And that's enough. But as far as defense, I don't know the names out there. People keep thinking they want to have a guy tied to Norvell. I think the guy from SMU has ties to him. I almost don't want that.
I want a guy who can recruit.
Yeah.
Across the board. I want guys who are going to bring talent with them. The defensive back coach from Oregon, he's a hell of a recruiter. Oregon's defense, especially their secondary, I mean, they've looked like an SEC defense since Mario was there.
Right.
So I respect a lot of the coordinators on that staff because they were attacked from Mario to Lanning. So if we can get a guy like that, but like to me, this isn't about a connection to Norvell. We need to get the best possible coaches available and bring talent with them. It's the only way we're getting out of this mess next year.
Yeah, I agree.
Mike's the only way out.
Yeah, because and Alfred, trust me, he has a Rolodex too, believe it or not. I don't buy the NFL stuff, like NFL coaches. Mike mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think that's just so recruits hear that. Oh, NFL coaches are interested.
But is that
he was talking about an offense and defense.
But like Herm Edwards had like one of the best NFL coaching staffs go with him in Arizona. Yeah. They suck.
They broke rules.
I think NFL guys probably struggle with the college kids.
Mm-hmm.
You're teaching somebody who's been coached by who knows what in high school that may not, their footwork, you may be starting from scratch on footwork. And if you're an NFL guy, that's like, I'm not coaching that. You should know how to do that when you get to me. So it's a completely different mindset.
Right. NFL coaches don't want to deal with the portal and NIL.
No. Yeah. In today's day and age, who wants to go from that job to a college job?
Imagine you're a D coordinator chewing out your linebacker and he's like, I'm just going to go to another school. He's not going to care. Like,
and then you have to go recruit all through during the bye week. No vacation. You're on a plane.
The college calendar is much crazier.
Yeah.
Than the NFL.
Anybody would jump to go down to the college.
And they're not wired to re-recruit their current players.
No.
They are not. They're used to guys in their system in NFL that are under contract there.
Right.
They can't just up and leave tomorrow, like unless they cut them. So I don't think the NFL thing would matter.
So we'll see. The other position coach that I'm really interested in is the offensive line.
I don't want an offensive coordinator.
You what?
I don't want an offensive line / OC. I want a guy just O-line only.
Right.
And I understand Atkins. His day-to-day life did not change being the OC.
No.
He said he was the same at every practice. I get it. I don't want that.
Right.
I just want a hard-nosed, and you have to be able to recruit and develop there.
Right.
We haven't done
that. If they got a guy from a big-time program who brought a kid with them, because I think a lot of that is happening now behind the scenes. That's why I'm like so. I just think everybody they bring in, they're going to try and snag a player or two to come with them.
Oh yeah,
They're talking to these
part of the
kids.
talks. Who can you bring with you? Excuse me. But he's been talking to coaches for a few weeks now.
Yeah, well, in his press conference
There's some
yesterday,
back channel stuff.
he almost played his hand because he usually is so chit chatty. He was very direct. He's like, I have a plan, and it was
I
almost
liked it.
but it almost made me think they're already identified and selected, and they're waiting for it to be the proper time.
I was shocked that he even said, yeah, ideally by the conference championship
Right.
weekend, we want to get guys. That shocked me because Mike is usually we're going to take as long as we need, get her, He said, yeah. I was waiting for a coach, and he said, wait, did he just give a timetable? I mean, even getting DJ last year was like pulling hairs. Like, are we ever going to find out our quarterback?
Yeah.
So I was surprised. I think they have a plan. I do. Mike's very detail oriented.
Right.
I think his staff let him down this year in some ways.
And
I think he trusted them too much.
The fact that they could hit on all recruits or on all transfer portal people, almost all transfer portal kids going into this year, and then miss on all of them is insane. That turnaround, that's what crippled us. Like, who would have thought?
Portal has changed since he's gotten.
Like, we got 5 damn kids, and we missed on all of them.
Yep.
Not one of them has been a key contributor.
No.
That Benson shown signs, but even that, he had a big drop in Georgia Tech. He had a big drop in what game was it?
He had a few. Yeah.
Was it Clemson?
There hasn't been one guy from last year's portal class that we said thank God. Now Richie Leonard got hurt. I don't think he changes your season though.
No.
But to miss on everybody?
Everybody.
I mean, I was excited when we got that D lineman from West Virginia. Jawe, I think.
Yeah.
Hasn't played all year.
No.
And Mike doesn't tell you, yeah, we're redshirting this guy.
Right.
He doesn't. Let me know that at least.
Right.
So I didn't see that coming. I trusted him so much. So
and he had earned it. I mean, into this year, and that's why when the chatter started with him being fired, it's like, man, you can't in February or January, whenever it was, you can't be. And this was like, if you asked a Florida State fan in January whether he should be given the extension when Alabama was looking at him, you would get a 99% approval rating of that decision.
Absolutely.
You can't go from that to a 99% approval rating of him being fired off of this sample size. And if you're Alfred, you cannot govern based on that type of volatility and temperament. You just have to zone that stuff out and make decisions.
If we don't extend Mike after last year, let's say his buyout's 10, 15 million. Do you still think he's the head coach right now?
If we don't extend Mike after last year, he's at Alabama. And everybody's pissed. Because this probably happens and Alfred's probably fired.
Yeah. Because how do you tell it in the lawsuit? You just lost your coach to the team that snubbed you.
Right. Think about the nightmare that would have been.
Oh, the PR nightmare? Oh.
But
they had a plan in place ready to go for Mike leaving.
So to your question, though, if he didn't have a $65 million buy, let's say that clause wasn't there. So he gets the extension, he's here. We're 1-9, and we don't owe him $65 million if he's fired this year. If I'm the AD, I do not fire him either way. Not this year.
I don't think he gets the extent. Like, let's say we went 10-2 last year. He doesn't get the extension. I don't think Alabama comes calling.
Agreed. Yeah.
He's gone after this year with 1-9.
Yeah, I guess so. If you're saying he went 10,
I don't know it's all what ifs and hypotheticals.
Yeah, with the talent we had last year, like if we had lost the Boston College game
The Clemson game, let's say we don't pull that in overtime.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and then this happens. I think you're right.
Because it wasn't like after the LSU game, man, our offensive numbers really sputtered throughout the year. Defense bailed us out a ton last year.
Yeah.
That's why I'm sure Fuller's really pissed off right now.
Well, he's got no one to blame but himself.
I agree. And I don't feel bad for people that are going to get paid $2 million a year for the next 2 years, not the coach.
That's the one coach I just didn't like. It wasn't an exciting defense.
And he's not a good recruiter.
He couldn't dominate no matter how good his defense is because he's soft.
Yeah.
Like 3rd and 18, it's one thing. So even when we would blitz on 3rd and long, he would play his corners way back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What-
But was it you that I was talking to when I said, how come it seems like every team always can make the easiest throws against us for 15, 20 yards and we can never do it? Like, isn't it? It seems like it's only us.
He blitzes and he's worried about the deep ball and he hits with a 5-yard slant and they go for 12. It's like what? Because when they're blitzing, he's got to make a quick decision, and our corners are talented.
Mhm.
And honestly, I'd rather give up a deep play where they score on one play rather than drive down the field for 8 minutes and completely wear us out and just break the morale of the team.
Right. I mean, I give them somewhat of a pass because, man, if your offense can't score at all, eventually you're gonna run out of stuff.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
only
the case
give-
this year. And I'm not defending Fuller. I've never been a fan of the guy.
yeah. He's called me pretty consistently since day one, and it's been really boring to watch.
I think he's a group of 5 coach. I don't think he's a power 5
Agreed.
high level defense coordinator. He's probably good at a Memphis. He's probably good at a smaller school.
He can get your defense in the top 35 in the country.
Yeah.
Which is really good for some people. Not when you have Fisk and Jared Verse. And
I agree. And
and
$2 million a year.
we're not
Making more than a lot of head coaches.
and Jerry Jones, who's apparently killing it in the NFL.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah. It's like we should have been a really dominant defense last year. And not that we were bad, but we weren't anywhere near as dominant as we should.
I would say until that Louisville game, yeah. Maybe Florida.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. They really hit their stride.
That Louisville game, man, just was one of the best defensive performances I ever seen from Florida State.
Yeah, it was up there as good as it can get.
Yeah, and that's when everything with Fisk and Verse came together.
Right.
Like you said, putting them on the same side, they ran those stunts. They were just, it was unreal.
Just took them all year to figure it out.
It took them all year to figure out and have 10 guys drafted.
Right.
I might have been able to do some stuff with that defense.
I think he is in the top 35.
Now this year, he just proved this year when he has a new defense, new guys, he cannot coordinate it. The message just does not get through to these guys.
Do you think so? The timeout before the half against Notre Dame, and then we had 12 guys on the field. Do you think they did that on purpose and didn't realize that rule got changed? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Because man, if they didn't, that's the 3rd time this year we've come out of the timeout with too many people on the field on defense.
that was one of my complaints to you about Mike this year as well.
That's
He's
not
making the most basic mistakes.
But that is a deep. So he does fully turn the defense over to Fuller. Mike's not making sure we don't have 6 safeties on the field or whatever. Like
And guess what? That's what happens when you're calling plays too. You're so buried in the play sheet in a struggling game, you don't see that stuff. And as a head coach, you have to see the big picture for everything. That's why you just said it. That's why I don't want him calling plays.
Yeah.
I want him seeing. That's what I hated with Jimbo calling plays. He would miss stuff with defense.
Well, the way Norvell was arguing at the end of that play, it almost looked like they did it on because there's 21 seconds left.
Was it the Miami game, right?
What's that?
Was it the Miami game?
No, this was the Notre Dame game.
Okay, but Miami game, he went over and yelled at Fuller.
That one he yelled. No, this one he was yelling at the ref.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he realized that rule got changed because what you're hoping for in that situation is they run around.
Yeah.
They burn 15 seconds, 10 seconds. They get the 15 yards. Now they have to kick a field goal. You've saved a field goal. And they changed the rule 5 weeks ago.
Mike and Fuller have not been on the same page at all this year. I mean, I heard Miami game there. Let's just say the argument from the sideline went to the locker room, to the plane ride home.
Should have fired him after that then.
I agree. I didn't know that till the other day. Yeah, you're done then.
Right.
And the administration's telling you to get rid of him. They gave you the green light. He should have been done after that game.
Yeah.
And listen, emotions happen in football. You would hear stories all the time in the Bowden days with coaches butting heads.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
No, and even on that happens on good teams sometimes.
Yeah. But when you're this bad doing it, that's bad.
And when you have 12 guys on the field coming out of the timeout. No. and then give up a touchdown the next play. Just the whole thing. That whole series was just let the kid kick it. There's no way he hits that field goal. 52 yards. The kid just sidewinded one from like 42.
Right.
Not that long ago. And you're gonna ice him? What went through your mind calling that timeout? It was raining. It was long. It was 21 seconds left. Let the kid kick it, man.
And he wouldn't answer that question after the game.
Well, one of the things he said was this is an indictment too. Well, we wanted to get a timeout so we could set up a block. What'd you call? You didn't call. You had to rethink whether you were going to set up a field goal block on that, and why. Let him miss the field goal. You're going to risk a roughing the kicker call. It's bad across all. There's no way he could justify it. And
it was just embarrassing the other night from special teams with the punt situation.
Yeah,
how many times? I mean, they could have blocked every one of Mastromanno's punts if they really want. I'm not saying they didn't want to, but I'm saying everyone was this close.
They were so cautious to not rough the kicker because they didn't. The only thing that would get us back in the game is some type of break like that. So don't even worry about blocking. So get as close as you can, but do not hit the kicker. Right. They were so paranoid about roughing the kicker. That's the only thing that prevented those blocks.
I think they couldn't believe they were getting that close every time.
Yeah. And I mean, they did tip it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think 3. Yeah. And they had 8 sacks, second most in the history of Notre Dame in a game. And how long have they been playing? I mean, that game's over. It's over and done. I get it. We're on to the coaching stuff now. Trust me, I'm going to support Mike. I know you don't completely think that, but it's one of those. If I just hear, oh, this is a young guy with potential, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I want some dogs coming in, alphas.
Yeah.
I understand he's still the head coach. It's still his program, but I want some no. I don't want some yes sir people. If guys coming in saying, "Listen, man, we're going to tell you what we think."
So we want Hartline, Dan Mullen.
Well, Hartline wouldn't come with Mullen. I want Hartline, Mullen,
coach Dan Mullen.
I mean, listen, Glenn Schumann's not going to leave Georgia to come be our DC, even though he'd have full autonomy of the defense.
Yeah, you don't leave Georgia.
He's a future head coach.
Yeah.
Under Kirby, so he's not leaving. Maybe Lanning has a guy for him. I mean, Jimmy Sexton's Rolodex is insane.
Yeah, and that's why I really do feel like they've actually already decided. They're just waiting when they can do it.
Or they're down to 1 or 2 guys at a position.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't talk about this, and I won't keep you forever, I promise. It's like the NFL now. I mean, are you going to have to wait for some coaches now who make a deep run in the playoffs?
You don't have to. Like even back in the day, Lane Kiffin took the job, and Bama was in the playoffs, and Nick Saban famously told him to just don't bother coaching the championship game. Get the hell out of here.
Well, he was furious with him.
I don't know what year that was, but there's been when Kirby Smart took the job at Georgia.
Right, the season's going on much later now.
No, but even those scenarios, Kirby Smart took the job at Georgia, and they still had the playoff.
True.
And he coached the playoff. I think the difference now is early signing day.
Yeah, and Pruitt too for us. Early signing day. I think for that's a moot point for us this year. I just wonder if some coaches.
That's the thing. Is there a scenario where, since they moved up signing day, a guy took a job, and then still had to coach in the playoffs past early signing day? Like, does that happen? I don't know if it does because the Kirby Smart
thing in the transfer portal window.
Signing day was still in February.
I think the transfer portal was the 9th to the 28th.
Right.
It's like right after signing day.
So I don't know if
remember Florida State starts spring semester earlier than most schools.
So if you're
that's a factor too.
A coordinator that's going to be in the playoffs, I think you have to leave the program to take the new position. How do you go through?
That's the problem, though.
So it just limits your search.
Or you don't announce it, and that coach is quietly recruited.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know.
Which happens a lot. You'd be surprised. How many times have you heard recruits say, "Oh, I know who the coach is going to be"?
But then how does it not? I mean, these are kids. How does it not leak? How do
It
you,
does. It will at some point.
that's the thing. If I'm Kirby Smart, my secondary coach is quietly recruiting my third string corner, I'm gonna be pretty pissed.
Oh yeah.
Probably
In a
not.
playoff run.
Yeah.
That's why this playoff structure is going to really affect coaching changes. Because you remember, I know you talked about Lane Kiffin getting that job, but always the whole month of December was free.
Right.
You could interview, you could go do all that, you could take a gig, you might coach 1 or 2 games in January.
Well,
Now you're busy that whole month.
they
Coaching.
need to get rid of the early signing period, or the early signing period like before the season starts, because the whole
do it in August.
was because it turned in the national. It's not the early signing period; it's national signing.
It is.
90% of the class signs. Go back to the old signing day, and if you have a group of kids who are really committed this summer before their senior year, give them that window. And if they sign, they sign.
Yeah, I think they do that in basketball. They have the early time.
They need to get rid of the December date, though. It's devastating.
Yeah, it doesn't make the calendars. They don't match up the calendars.
No.
Even with that early signing with the coaches, because remember, like I said, December used to be a free month. That was always coaching search time in the lower tier bowl games.
And they could actually rest.
Now it's all football. It's playoff games.
Yeah.
So there's really no window to really go after coaches. You're going to have to do it now. That's why coaches are going to get fired earlier in the season now.
Right.
So you can get a head start.
Yeah, and you kind of have to get them. I really do hope whoever we pick that they do have a place by right after the championship games. So
that'd be great.
So at least we can have something to look forward to through the holidays.
We need that.
Yeah, we need something.
And Battle's End needs that too.
Yeah.
But Billy, man, thank you for your time.
Hey, anytime. I'm sure we'll pick it up Saturday, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. All right, man.
Hey, Billy, thank you for your time. I'm going to have you back here for sure, man.
Definitely.
And thanks, everyone, for watching the Rock and Roll. We're going to come back with more coaching news, I'm sure, before you know it, guys. Thanks, Billy.
Yep, take it easy.